Hey guys, and welcome back. So this is a little bit later than I said it was going to be, but we are back with the Ynarri, which is what we're looking at today. So I'm mostly going to focus on the Ynarri as kind of a pure Harlequin's Ynarri blend today, because that's kind of the focus of the channel. I will talk a little bit about things that you could soup in, but mostly I'm going to be focusing on what does the Ynarri bring to a Harlequin's faction. Now, to have a Ynarri Harlequin's attachment, you need to add one of the characters. So you've got the Incarn, the Vizark, and Ivrain. So that's the first thing, is you need to add one of these characters, and that does give us a little bit more versatility in terms of our characters. Not that we really need more characters, but the Incarn, for example, is a big, heavy-hitting melee unit, which we don't otherwise have access to. But then we can just plug him in to a normal Harlequin's attachment. So why would we take them as Ynarri? Well, okay, first of all, their trait, strength from death. So something has to die, but if it dies, so either yours or the opponent's, then you get, you get to fight first in the fight phase, which is useful. But if you also already charge, then you get +1 to hit, which is more useful. So now you've got Harlequin troops hitting on 2s, which is very tasty. And if you add something like the Vizark in there, you can also reroll 1s. You've got hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. Then if you've got caresses, for example, then you're usually wounding on 3s, rerolling all wounds. It's not bad. It's a very nice trait. Unfortunately for me, that's almost where it stops. So the issue with the trait, for one thing, is that, well, we need to kill something for it to really have any effect. And the moment that you create a Ynarri detachment with your Harlequins is the moment that you lose access to all of our stratagems, which are, I'm going to say, significantly better than the Ynarri ones. You do get access to a few things which are quite nice. So with the Incarn, you can get a 6-up Feels No Pain, natural, without having to use a spell or take a Warlord trait or something, so that's already quite nice, and he is a bit of a beat stick. Now, the problem with a lot of the stratagems is that most of them do things that we don't necessarily need. And what I mean by this is we've got a few where it's like failed wound rolls being re-rolled, which we get from a troop master, to fall back and still shoot and charge, which we can essentially do anyway. You can add the Exalted Ynarri, which is quite useful. If you've got a mix like some Harlequins and some Ynarri, you can kind of add a Warlord trait, which is okay. That tends to work quite well. And then we've got things like Lightning Fast Reflexes, which is standard, getting more relics. Yeah, it's a little bit difficult to know what to do with a lot of the stratagems because they're quite situational and not particularly strong. However, with Ynarri you can make some very powerful characters, and that is something that we already have, and it can kind of make more use of what we have already in the faction, and just bump it up to 11 basically. So firstly, the Warlord traits. We've got Lord of Rebirth. The Warlord gains 1 lost wound at the start of every battle round and gets a 5-up Feels No Pain. Pretty nifty. Gives a little bit of a little bit of staying power to your troop master or your Shadow Seer. If you've got -1 to wound already, and then you've got like regaining wounds and 5-up Feels No Pain and all the rest of it, it can be quite nice. Warden of Souls, add 1 to attacks and strength characteristic when benefiting from Soul Burst. Again, yeah, I guess you're aiming for the Soul Burst thing, but still, I just don't see it as all that good. The Walker of Many Paths, so you can re-roll a hit roll, wound roll each turn, which is very useful, and you get command points back on a 5+. I'm not sure if it's better than Player of Twilight because we have the ability to potentially get more CP back every turn. However, you've got a hit roll and a wound roll every turn, which is quite nice. So thinking about, like putting it on Shadow Seer and re-rolling that hit roll for his grenade every turn, or put it on a troop master, and just in case you get a roll of a 1, you know, can be quite nice. Fear of the Grave, enemy units must subtract 1 from their leadership characteristic. They must subtract 2 if an enemy unit was destroyed by an attack made by this warlord, which for other factions again would be meh, but for us, like, the ability to get a further -2 when then sort of, let's say, souped into a normal Harlequin's Silent Shroud army or something like that would be amazing, because then you know, you can get up to -7 to their leadership, which is just disgusting. Okay, favourite of Ynarri, each time this warlord piles in or consolidates, they can move up to 6 inches instead of up to 3. We can kind of do that anyway, so I would leave that one. Master of Death, each unmodified hit roll of a 6 causes 2 hits instead of 1. Now, when you're looking at all of these traits put together, and if you've got something like, you know, the Vizark next to your Troop Master, who's got the Master of Death, and then he's hitting on 2s anyway, and then re-rolling 1s, and then, you know, potentially wounding significantly well as well, you know, this could be okay. Now, the psychic powers are interesting. The Word of the Phoenix seems to be quite a useful one for our bikes, just in terms of being able to heal D3 lost wounds. But we are losing access to Prismatic Blur. I don't know, maybe someone has done the maths on this one. What would be better, Prismatic Blur for a 3-up invuln save, or having the Incarn with a 6-up feels no pain, and being able to use Word of the Phoenix? I'm not sure. It's a difficult one to work out. The Gaze of Ynarri, you know, doing mortal wounds. Yeah, more mortal wounds. Unbind Souls. Reroll wounds rolls again. We don't really need that. 5-up invuln save. Well, we already have a better one. And yeah, reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by that unit can be pretty nasty on the bikes. You could definitely give them a lot more, you know, attack potential. It's kind of what they need. So I don't know, you're basically sacrificing a fair amount of defense for a fair amount of attack potential. That's kind of what I can see with the Ynarri. But the interesting thing gets sort of when we get to the relics, mostly because they have one of the best relics in the game, which is Hungering Blade. Or sorry, in the game, not since Psychic Awakening or all these shenanigans, but at least for Eldari, that Eldari have access to. So it's a strength +3, -3 AP, flat 2 damage, and it inflicts mortal wounds in addition to normal damage on a roll, an unmodified roll of a 6. This is nasty. Yeah, putting that on a Troop Master where you're re-rolling wound rolls as well, and just, this is a really, really nasty one. And it gives you a reason to get that Power Sword, which looks amazing on Troop Master. Song of Ynarri, the Pistol 3, yeah, not really anything to write home about. Subtract 1 from hit rolls. You know, on a Shadow Seer, you're looking at -1, potentially -2, -3, plus the stratagem -4 to hit, basically making an untargetable character in the shooting phase. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay. Soul Snare seems to be another one of these strange ones where you have to kind of, you hit something, and then you kind of regain some wounds, which, again, these are the sort of things that I imagine would be very, very powerful on something like a Wraith Seer, but we don't have one. Like on a Troop Master or a Shadow Seer, it's a lot of investment into a character that is difficult to get rid of, but is not that broken as it is. Like, you know, it's okay. And then Lost Shroud, all damage suffered by the bearer is halved, and then roll a d6, so 6-up feels no pain. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there are elements of the Ynarri that are really beneficial for Harlequins. Like having a battalion with, let's say, the Incarn and a Troop Master, 3 units of 5 troops, because you want to keep it kind of MSU, and then putting them all in some transports is definitely not a bad idea. You know, add a unit of bikes in there if you really want to try and kind of increase that damage potential. They've got some very nasty ways of benefiting our faction in terms of things like our ability to hit. which is one of our biggest weaknesses. We can wound, usually, with the rerolls, but hitting in the first place is kind of one of our weaknesses. It's a difficult one, because would you rather spend 2 CP and have your Warlord do that and then get Frozen Stars for the extra attack, or would you rather just get flat, +1 to hit when you charge? And they have some interesting options, definitely some good little combinations that you can put in there that generally benefit us. The question is whether or not it's worth losing our stratagems, particularly because our stratagems are fantastic for putting us into position. They're really good for, essentially giving us an answer to any possible situation on the battlefield. It's like, oh, your knight's going to fall back, I'm going to shoot it anyway. Or, oh, well, you're not within 6 inches of my character, so I'm going to use my 6-inch heroic intervene. Oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get that objective. Okay, I'm going to add 6 inches to the advance. So I'm just going to do the flat 6 inches to the advance roll. There are so many useful little tricks in the Harlequin's arsenal, and there are very few stratagems in the Ynarri one that are actually useful to us. A lot of them kind of give us the option to do what we can do naturally. That being said, if you want to go for Ynarri, I do think that they give us a significant boost in many, many ways. So, as I say, having the Incarn is actually a really good option. In ITC as well now with Born for Greatness, making the Incarn Born for Greatness, not necessarily a bad idea either, just because he's got the psychic abilities, he's quite tough, he can teleport, he can take objectives, he can kill stuff. He's a nasty character to have. And essentially what I'm looking at with this is, I think, surrounding him by a few troops, kind of feeding those troops into your enemy in order to be able to regain wounds and to be able to do, all of these things that Ynarri can kind of do quite well, could be an option. I think Ynarri is very much a hero hammer army now. You are basing your army around some very, very powerful individuals, and then you're adding in minimal units to kind of help to protect them, to act as a screen, but also to be buffed a little bit by them to do a bit of extra damage. So overall, it's not the worst option. It's a fair option. It's just not necessarily worth sacrificing our stratagems for. Excuse me. So I'm not sure whether or not I would choose the Ynarri personally, although I have been toying with the idea of just trying them out. I love the models that they brought out. The 3 characters are fantastic. I certainly wouldn't go pure Ynarri, because those characters are really expensive, and you are losing out on so many different things in terms of your mask forms and your stratagems basically already in the codex. So yeah, it's a bit of, for me. Now, where this really shines is in mixed soup melee lists. So what I mean by that is you add, the best melee units from the Drakari, from the Craftworlds, from the Harlequins. You kind of all blend it together to try and create like a very nasty little mix. For example, if you've got 3 units of Howling Banshees, minimal units, and then you add 3 units of Witches, potentially minimal units, and then you add 3 units of Harlequins with their melee weapons kitted out, you have sort of strike squads, if you see what I mean. So you charge with the Banshees first to ignore Overwatch, then you charge with the Witches to hold something in combat, and then you use your Harlequin units as the hammer, just to kind of kill as much as possible. So against those kind of large units of Primaris and other things that we're kind of struggling to get rid of at the moment, that can be quite a nasty little combo, because you can hold something and then you've got all of these little units rushing out and fanning out and basically being able to kind of tag team different units on the battlefield. So I think for a mixed soup Ynarri list, Harlequins are a fantastic include. For a pure Harlequins list, a battalion is, not a bad option. As a standalone Ynarri Harlequins army, I don't personally think that they are particularly competitive. I think the problem with Ynarri is that if any of you remember, the beginning of 8th edition, they were dominating tournaments because they could double action stuff, which is it's nice and fluffy, but it's just bad for the game. But this is a typical example of using a sledgehammer when a scalpel would have done. The stratagems as they are weak. The trait is okay, but it only works on the basis of you need to kill something first, which shouldn't be such an issue if you've got a bunch of scouts running around. But if you've got blobs of 10 to 20 intercessors and vehicles running around, yeah, I don't know. It's not the option that I would say is super competitive, but there are nice little combos that you can add in there. So, I don't have a huge amount else to say about them. I haven't played them myself yet. I will be looking into that, mostly because I don't have the Triumvirate. I'm looking at buying it at some point soon. Looking forward to painting that up because they're beautiful models. But I do think they have interesting potential in terms of using them, as I say, for kind of hero hammer based armies. But I don't think that they are necessarily better than our Codex masks that we already have access to and all the stratagems that we have. But that's down to you as a player as well. If you think that they are definitely worth it, if you think that the trait outweighs the things that you lose, if you want to have a little bit more aggressive melee potential in the combat phase and potentially in the shooting phase as well, then Ynarri might be a really good option for you. It gives you access to things that the Harlequins are sorely in need of, but unfortunately it takes away some of the things that we do best as well. And that's pretty much all that I have to say about them. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know down below, have you done really well with the Ynarri Harlequins or Ynarlequins? Have you got different opinions to me on this one? Have you thought of any combinations that would be fantastic? I did a little bit of research onto this one, which is why it took a little bit longer. I've been reading through Frontline Gaming's articles, and I did listen into the Splinter Mind podcast as well, so look there for a few more details. But generally, I think they have game, they have potential, but you really have to build around that trait and their characters. And that's pretty much all I have to say about them. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.